the viewpoint has changed to, we still got this.
Right.
We've had a little bit and a little piece and a little bit and a little piece of progress here, and let's not give up the fight.
Correct.
And again, I always like what LeBron has to say about this, but Wesley Matthews, this one surprised me a little bit. I hadn't thought about him, but he is...
He's from Wisconsin.
His father played at the University of Wisconsin, then was a point guard, obviously the backup, on 2 Laker championship teams back in '87 and '88. And then, even though Wesley Jr. was born in San Antonio, he went to high school up in Madison, Wisconsin, where University of Wisconsin is based, obviously. And he was Mr. Basketball in the state of Wisconsin in 2005, then chose to go to Marquette instead of University of Wisconsin, but he was a star at Marquette, and then you know the rest of the story. And last year, he winds up faithfully with the Bucks in Milwaukee. So he was part and parcel of a decision that got made, what was that night, August 26th, in the bubble, when the Bucks sort of broke ranks, as you recall, shocked to LeBron and to everybody.
Shocked everybody because no one knew.
Yeah, no one knew, and they decided minutes before a tip-off of a bubble playoff game, no.
We good.
We're not going to go out there. We're not going to play.
Right.
And left the Orlando Magic just standing out in the arena by themselves like, really? No game? No game. So he was in the middle of that, and obviously that domino effect that night was, it had national, it might have had international impact.
Yes.
Okay, so he knows what of he speaks, and he calls himself, obviously, a Wisconsinite. And I liked what he had to say about this can't deter us. It's what you just said. We can't lose our heads. We can't start rioting. We have to be calculated, and we have to continue to keep our foot on the pedal, to continue to push down on the gas. Because you've had some little, I'm not going to call them major breakthroughs, but some fairly significant small breakthroughs in the last, what, 6 months?
Yes.
And it has to continue.
Right.
Because you got paid off a little bit later in the night. We can get to all this in just a moment after we finish talking about the Jacob Blake decision. But you got paid off a little bit in the state of Georgia because that was a big deal to you.
That's a huge deal. First of all, they've never had an African-American senator in the state of Georgia. Hadn't had a Democrat since 2000.
Okay. So on Jacob Blake, I don't want to try to retry the case, but it was a tricky one. And yet, let's just quickly restate some of the facts that the DA brought up. He had a 2-hour presentation after this verdict or this decision came down. And he told reporters that it all started when they got a call from the mother of Jacob Blake's children that he was there trying to take her car and the children in her car. And she was asking for them to come and help her. And so on the way, they find that en route, the cops are told that there's a warrant out for his arrest for sexual assault. So when they get there, he is placing the kids in the back seat of her car. So obviously, they have to try to arrest him immediately because there's a warrant out for his arrest. So I'm good with that part of it. So then he did resist. And according to another investigation done by a man named Noble Ray, who's a former police chief and a use of force expert who is a black man, and he carefully reviewed the investigation, he said that Blake did have this knife. It was a razor-like knife. It was a box cutter. I don't know what it was. Something like that, like a razor blade type knife that he had in his hand during the struggle. And they used the stun gun on him 3 times, according to what they said yesterday, to no effect. Who knows? I don't know what was happening. And he had the knife. He dropped the knife during the struggle, and then he picked the knife back up. But then he's starting to go into the driver's side of the car. And for reasons that escape me, the one officer in most question here grabbed the back of his shirt and pulled him back from the car and didn't just shoot him 1 time, shot him 7 times. 7 times. 4 times in the back, 3 times in the side. He remains paralyzed. Okay. Is that in bounds? Not to me, but again, I don't know the exact letter of the law, but again, the DA yesterday, district attorney, is trying to tell the media they did fear for their lives at that point. Okay, I don't know. Again, I don't want to retry it, but I want everybody to remember now that's the circumstance. 7 times shots fired by one officer. Okay, so...
The officers told investigator he used deadly force because he was afraid of Blake. The court system have said,
yes,
be the threat real or imagined.
right.
You have the right to use deadly force, Skip, because you have to think of the officer in that situation at that very moment. Not right now, you and I having a conversation. Not 20 minutes later. You got to think about him in that very situation. But the court says something very big we need to understand.
All right.
A threat real or imagined.
Or imagined.
Skip,
Okay.
I'm going walking down the street, man. He looked at me. He might want to do something to me. Let me go get him.
Well, if you have a badge, you can.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's what it is. A badge is a license to be a gangster.
It's a license. I don't know the mentality of this officer in question, Rustin Shesky. I have no idea. Does he have racist thinking in the back of his brain? Maybe. I have no idea. Can we weed out the racist cops slowly but surely? If there's a system in place for it, yes, we can.
Right.
There was a bill out here in California that was up during the bubble.
And at the height, Skip, this was at the height of what was going on. And look at...
And it would have held policemen more accountable for their actions.
Yes.
And it came and it went. Okay, so again, we have a new president, maybe a new frontier. I don't know, but again, I think we all know where this headed.
Right.
And yet, in the end, the only good news I had off this part of the equation was that there's a federal civil rights investigation into the Blake shooting that is still underway. Will anything come of it? Maybe. Maybe in this administration. Maybe.
Because I think they're gonna have to hold people more accountable because they ran on that of saying they're willing to hold police officers accountable.
Right.
They're willing to pass legislation that will hold police departments accountable for their actions. So now, Skip, everybody, you know, politician in and of itself is a lie.
Yep.
But you made assertions, and the black people, President-elect Biden, let's be 1,000. That's what got you there. You was treading water until James Clyburn of South Carolina, he backed you, you whitewashed through the primaries.
Yep.
And then some other prominent African Americans got behind you. And Stacey Abrams, Skip, I know you probably don't know who she is, but she ran for governor.
I mean, I've read a lot about her. Yep.
And she ended up losing to Brian Kemp for the...